My friends, let's have a very candid conversation about the symptoms that I was experiencing that we eventually found out was colorectal cancer. My hope is to keep this from happening to you. My hope is that you don't have to go through what I went through, that your families don't have to go through what I put mine through. So, I'm not going to spare any details. So, viewer beware. I'm going to put it all out there for you. Spring of 2020, a couple of things were going on. Number one, my allergies were horrible. And so I was taking an antihistamine. I was doing a steroid nasal spray. Also started taking some pseudoephedrine just because, trying to get all of it to drain. It happened to be at the same time I was really changing my diet. I was motivated to try to drop some weight and increased my protein, vegetables, fruits, and trying to decrease carbohydrates. And was sticking with that pretty good. Now, the first symptoms that I started to experience, I started getting some kind of gassiness, some bloating that I don't typically get. Now, all the increase in protein, that makes sense. Sometimes I'd have a little bit of constipation. Other times I'd have diarrhea. It would kind of alternate between those. Now, the interesting thing about that is, first of all, the constipation. Again, I was taking pseudoephedrine, can dry you up. Figured that might be what's going on. But then also with all the increase in fruit and vegetable, I thought maybe that had to do with some of the diarrhea that I was having. Again, this was a pretty big shock to my system here with the dietary changes. At the same time, I started to see some blood in my stool. Now, it's happened before that when I've been taking pseudoephedrine, because it increases my blood pressure, and I have hypertension anyway, because it can increase my blood pressure, I could end up with some hemorrhoids, some internal hemorrhoids. And so that's kind of what I figured it was that these symptoms that I started to see in May into June was probably dietary and also the medications that I was taking at the time. One thing to know about the gut is that it changes very slowly. And so that I knew that any variable that I tried to alter, I had to give it some time. So to try to help with the constipation, the diarrhea, I went ahead and added a fiber supplement. Was hoping that not only would that bulk me up, but also, kind of help with a little bit more regular bowel motility. As far as the hemorrhoids, I went ahead and got back on my antihypertensive. Still wanted to take the pseudoephedrine to help everything drain from those allergies, but figured let's go ahead and decrease the blood pressure if we could at the same time. Now, after giving that a couple more months, now we're into August, give or take. I noticed things weren't changing still. Okay, let's try to change some things around. First of all, let's stop the pseudoephedrine. Let's go ahead and get that over with, and so that way the hemorrhoids could heal. The diet, I pretty much kept the same. Was being a little bit more mindful of adding in some natural dietary fiber with my food choices, but at the same rate, just kind of let that ride to see what that would end up doing. Unfortunately, the gassiness, the bloatiness, the constipation, the diarrhea, it continued. And after giving this some time, so was the blood in the stool. Well, at this point, it's getting into September or October, and I'm still having the symptoms. Now, I finally reach out to my friend and primary care physician, Dr. Russ Kennedy, and he tells me, he's like, Friz, come on, you got to get your colonoscopy here. And I don't want to do that. I mean, come on, I've heard the horror stories. I'm not even old enough for one yet. I'm not going to mess with it yet. I'm going to fiddle around with a few more things. Smart guy, right? Well, anyhow, at that point, I decided, you know what? I'm going to put everything back to the way it was. I'm returning my diet to normal, whatever I did before I was trying to lose weight. I'm going to go ahead and uh, um, get off of the other medicines that I was taking. I'm going to get off of the fiber. And let's just kind of see if everything finally resets itself. It didn't. In November, I had put together, you know, This whole time I've been looking at this as if it's two separate things, some IBS or just gut irritation from dietary changes and hemorrhoids. But that's when I kind of started to put together, there is one thing that could answer, that could explain all of this. We say in medicine that if you hear hoof prints, don't turn around and expect a zebra. Sometimes it's a zebra. I was out at the burn pit with my daughter, first mate Renee, and just had a fire going, and I had scooped up a bunch of leaves, and she's sitting in there playing in them and jumping in them. I remember just watching her, and I realized that that could be the last time that I got to watch her do that. Now, if you guys are following the timeline, you heard what I said. Now we're into late November, December of 2020. What's going on? COVID. That's right. I actually had a patient whose mother went in for an elective procedure, ended up getting COVID, and passed away. Well, I was not about to head into the hospital for a colonoscopy. Probably dumb, but I just decided, you know what? Let's give this a couple more tries and let's really treat it as if it's hemorrhoids because the bleeding was still continuing. So there are some different suppositories that you can try, and not just the big over the counter. There's some prescriptions that you can try that can really help to not only help with the pain, the irritation, but also shrink them and decrease the bleeding. So I went ahead and went that route. And at first, it really looked like it was helping. I mean, I thought, I'm finally on top of this. Well, the bleeding started again. And finally, I started to realize, golly, I think I am going to actually have to do that colonoscopy. My dear friend Salome actually got it approved with my insurance that even though that I wasn't 50, that it could go down as a routine screening based off of family history. So she removed all the barriers, right? And at that point, you had to look. I mean, come on, get over it. There is a story, and this is going to be for a different chapter, but there is a story about the time that I actually did decide, okay, I'm doing the colonoscopy, and that was pure divine intervention. In my personal opinion, it was one of my angels looking out for me. And we're going to talk about that, like I said, in a future chapter. But I did go in. And I remember during the colonoscopy, and the doctor, and I think highly of him, Dr. Ancha. Dr. Ancha came in and he said, well, what do you think could be going on? I said, well, worst case scenario, it could be colorectal cancer. No, 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 you're too young for that. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, but hey, it's one of the potential diagnoses. He goes, well, what else? And I said, well, it could be like an IBS. No, no, no. And then he started to accuse, did you Google? Were you Googling? No, Dr. Ancha, I did not Google. I'm a doctor. And in medical psych, we actually got into some of those conditions. This is probably a good time to talk about the procedure of a colonoscopy because it was not nearly as bad as what I thought it was going to be. Seriously. You hear these horror stories. This was my experience. Okay. 2 days before, it's not a bad idea to do a low residue diet, something that it's easy for your body to flush out. Go ahead and research that. You'll see plenty of information of what I'm talking about. The day before is the liquid diet. Now, I actually did some bone broth that I'll tell you what, it made that very filling. I was surprised at how filling it was. So, the fact that I was on a liquid diet did not seem to be that big of a deal. Now, there are a few colors you have to watch out for. So, again, follow your doctor's instructions when it comes to that. That evening, this is the evening before the procedure, you drink the stuff. Now, there's actually several different preps that you can do. The one that I did, it was a kit, had a 16-ounce plastic cup, and then two different vials. And you take one vial and you pour it in and mix it with water until it's filled. Drink that down. Wait 2 hours and then you do the other one. For me, I felt like it tasted like flat Alka Seltzer. Okay, flat elk. Truthfully, I've drank way worse stuff. As a beer nerd, I have drank way worse. So even though it wasn't great, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. Now, at that point, you're going to be on the toilet. Okay, you better have your phone charged up because you're going to be in there for a while. And when you think you're done, you're probably not done. If you have to get up and stretch your legs, fine, but don't leave the bathroom. Okay, because seriously, when it gets started, it's like somebody just turned a faucet on. Okay, I mean it's coming out of you. Don't go to bed too quick. Make sure you're good. Okay. But then the next morning when you go in, you walk in, you sign in, go in, get the gown on. At that point, they'll typically get an IV started just so that it's ready. And then, your doctor will come in and visit with you. A lot of times, the anesthesiologist will come and visit with you, make sure that there's nothing they have to worry about. And then you wait for your turn. Now, when it's your turn, they go ahead and wheel you into the procedure room. Truthfully, there's more people in there than what I would have cared for, but oh well, it is what it is at this point. And then at that point, they had me roll over to my left side, and then they said, "Okay, you're going to start getting sleepy," and then boom, I was out. Woke up in the original room. No memory of nothing. It was it was over. And as far as I was concerned, I took a 5-minute nap. And really, they want you to have a driver, and that's smart. Make sure you do. But at the same rate, I really felt good. I didn't have any problems with it. No over sedation or anything like that. Came out of that really, really quite easily. So, folks, don't hesitate. It was a way easier procedure than what I ever realized. As I woke up, Dr. Ancha had come in and he let us know that indeed he did find a tumor. Of course, there I kind of rejoiced that diagnostically I was accurate. I might be a little competitive, but anyway, he reassured me that I was young, that I was healthy, and uh, except for the cancer, that we would go ahead and throw everything at this that we could. That there'd probably be radiation, chemotherapy, surgery. Told me that I would have an ostomy. But and immediately he went ahead and signed the papers to go ahead and get a full CT scan. That way we could see if the lungs were clear and if the liver was clear. A lot of times, if colorectal cancer is going to metastasize, it tends to go to the lungs and the liver. That's some of the biggest things we have to watch for. It can go other places, spine, brain, but where it tends to go first is the lungs and the liver. This is probably also a good time to talk about some risk factors. Years and years ago, I did smoke cigarettes. Now, I had given that up, but hey, let's face it, there's all kinds of problems that can come from that. I do drink alcohol, and there was a time that I drank heavily, never an alcoholic, but definitely drank more than what I should. Um, I'm obese. Okay, I still am, not as bad as I was, but at the same rate, my diet wasn't great. So folks, I had all four of the four major risk factors. So please, if you have any of those, tend to those. Okay, let's decrease your risk for these things happening. As far as colonoscopies, remember I said that I wasn't old enough. Well, that's because I wasn't 50 yet. Guess what? While I was going through cancer treatment, they turned it back to 45. Why? Because it's happening younger and younger and younger. Did you folks see the chapter Misty's Sale? Take a look at that. She was 23 and a half when she was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. It's happening younger and younger. So, if you have symptoms, get checked out. Otherwise, age 45 or 10 years prior to your parents showing any polyps. My friends, like I said before, I don't want you to go through this. I don't want your families to go through what I put my family through. Please hear what I have to say. Watch for those symptoms. Send this video to your loved ones. Okay. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer them for you. All right. You could reach out to me in the comments down below or on Facebook or Instagram. I'm open book, guys. I'd be happy to help you. You know, I have been, before YouTube, I was very vocal about this on Facebook. And I'm happy to say, I'm proud to say that dozens and dozens have reached out to me saying that after hearing my story, they went and had their colonoscopies. Folks, 5 of them, I'm now up to 5 of them, had the very beginning of cancer, cancerous polyps, stage 0 cancer. We call it carcinoma in situ. My cancer saved 5 people from colorectal cancer. Sometimes, not always, sometimes this is preventable, but it takes early screening, and it takes that when you start experiencing symptoms that you're smarter than me and you go in and get checked. Okay, guys, I'm thinking about you. Please, fair winds following seas, and you know I want you to find your sailboat. Doc out.